All right, well, it's 10:30, so we might kick off. Congratulations on making it to lecture number 2. That's actually not a mean feat, especially on a morning like tomorrow where they promised us sunshine and we still don't have it. But anyway, a little colder than I expected. This is the hardest week we do in this unit. So if you can live through this week and survive with me, we're doing okay. All right. Human beings and how we've understood the world around us has changed over time, right? So in the initial cave days, we understood the world in a certain way, and when we didn't understand a problem, we thought about it in a certain way. But there's kind of 2 points in sort of modern day about the pre-Enlightenment time and the post-Enlightenment time. So pre-Enlightenment, and Enlightenment occurred sort of around the Industrial Revolution. So we're talking, the pre-Enlightenment was before that. So it started early 1700s, and the Industrial Revolution started sort of mid-1700s. So we're talking about a changing of the way people thought about problems. So pre-Enlightenment, we were talking about religion. Okay, so how people saw the world, and if a problem arose in society, they'd think about it in the context of their various religions. Okay, so, if there's an earthquake, it's God's will, that sort of stuff. Yep. And experience. If I touch a bee, it stings me, I won't touch a bee again. That sort of stuff. So that's kind of the pre-Enlightenment thing. Then what happened in the Enlightenment time is that you had a range of philosophers and a range of scientists who started to question whether or not God was actually there and whether or not humans had a role in the whole nature of science. So then we ended up with things like, a whole range of things about what is the nature of man, and whether or not, the tabula rasa, which is the Locke concept of we're all born as a blank slate. And that whole concept of actually how human beings think and how human beings engage. And so that's kind of the post-Enlightenment moment, if you like. That's not to say science hasn't always been around, right? Plato, who's one of my go-to guys, regardless of what you think about him, he is one of my go-to guys. Terrible misogynist, but we won't go into that. He was a big mathematician. Okay, so he was 300 years BC. So science has always been around, but there's always been, when we're solving problems and thinking about societal problems, there's been that overlay of religion. Post-Enlightenment, we lose it. Pre and post, I'm talking about philosophy there. So if you know anything about philosophy, this is the week of philosophy. Yeah. Theorists and philosophy and how we philosophise about what we are and where we're going and how we see problems. This is important for qualitative research, or social science research, sorry, my mistake. All right, when we're looking at social sciences, we're philosophising about things. And theorists give us those frameworks in which to do that. They shape it for us. Okay? So that's kind of how we understand truth and how it changes over time. Again, my image is all natural science stuff. I'm really struggling with Google to try and find... Anyway, we'll move on. Okay. So, what we've got here is I did a quick wiki search, I'm not going to lie, a quick list of philosophers. You can see a whole range of them down that side. What's missing from that side, if you did Introduction to Sociology... Derrida's on, not Derrida, Durkheim, why have you gone away? Durkheim, Foucault, no, Weber, but Marx wasn't on there, so I've put Marx on the other side. Okay, so this is an interesting concept. So basically I did a Google search for social science theorists and social science philosophers, and they'd left out Marx. Odd, right? I'm assuming we all know who Marx is. If no one's with me, he was a dude that put forward an economic system. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We'll go into it. Now, I've got Plato on that side. Anyway, sorry. We've also got Plato on that side because he's my go-to, and Leclau, which I'm going to talk about a little bit as well. Okay? So you can do your own search. You can find all that sort of stuff. But the point is that I'm going to be drawing on the philosophers, how we perceive the world. One thing I do want to point out here is that this is Western philosophers. Okay? A lot of social science research in today's world is really Eurocentric. By that, I just mean it's really focused on the European experience. I've heard some really fantastic social science presentations where they're using Eastern philosophies. and you know, how they think about that and how those frameworks operate completely differently. And it's really fascinating research. So if you have got an affinity with an Eastern type philosophy, feel free to think about how you would apply that in social science research. Guys, don't sit on the floor up the back, find a chair. Are they sitting on the floor? You need to find chairs. I've had an email telling me you've got to make sure all the students are sitting on chairs. Seriously, because you know that's what's important. Sorry guys, just come down and find chairs. There's heaps of chairs, come on. For those of you playing at home, you didn't have to worry about this. Okay, so I just want to have a quick example of a theory. This is a guy called Popper. Now he's a post-positivist. Okay, I haven't talked about the paradigms yet. If you're going, what's that? That means you didn't do the reading for this week for the tutorial. You're in trouble. But it also means... Oh, really? Okay, so he was a post-positive. So he was a guy who was talking about positivists, i.e. the natural sciences, doing the experiment. And he started to say, I think we've got some problems here about saying, I've shown this, therefore it's true. Okay? He started to have some questions about that. And so what he said was, and he came up with this really nice idea about swans. So when I did my Google search for swans, this is the set of images that were the first few lines that came up. Anyone notice anything about these pictures? Anything odd? What stands out? Anything? One black one. This was Popper's thing. He said, the problem with positivism is that we say all swans are white because you only see white swans. So day in, day out, you see white swan after white swan. So therefore all swans are white, and that is a truth. Right up until the day you see a black swan. And then your theory about all swans being white is now false. So Popper was talking about falsification. And this was kind of the beginning of the idea of the theory of gravity. So gravity is not true, it's a theory. It's just no one's disproved it yet. So it starts to move how we think about how we're solving problems and how we think about problems as not truths or true, but not false yet. Okay, this is one of the reasons why I like Popper. I'm not much of a post-positivist, but I do like this concept. So all swans are white right up until the point they're not. Okay, kind of a nice little idea. I kind of quite like this one. Okay, so let's talk about why theories are really important for the social sciences. In the natural sciences, and you're going to have to cast your minds back to here to high school science, for some of you that's a bit further than others, you had a really simple process. You had a hypothesis, you had your list of things that you were going to do, then you did it, then you wrote up your discussion, and then you did your conclusion. All natural sciences happen that way. I've got an idea, I'm going to test for it, oh look, thank you, conclusion. So when they're doing research, they don't have to stuff around with theorists. They don't have to think about how their problem exists. They don't have to think about these concepts of how do we solve and how do we think about this. Because it doesn't matter, because we all know what they're doing. Oh, by the way, a student asked me to put the slides on Canvas before the lecture, and I've done that. I don't know whether you've seen that, but anyway. So they have a really simple way to prove the credibility of their research. We don't doubt natural science. You know, when somebody says, I've got this hypothesis, I did this experiment, I proved it, we never doubt it because we know this. We know that this is their process. It's immediately valid, immediately credible. The problem with the social sciences is that we don't have that process because we don't have that reliability. Remember last week I talked about reliability and the fact that we can repeat things, we can't repeat things. So in the social sciences, if I go out and I observe a group of people today, I will get a data set. If I go out and observe that group tomorrow, I will get a different data set, even if it's exactly the same people. Okay, we can't repeat our experiments. We can't repeat our research. So we have to be credible in other ways, and we do it by our theoretical frameworks. We do it by choosing a philosopher or philosophers or frameworks and then researching inside that box, if you like. All right? Because it explains, if we return to epistemology, it returns to showing how we know what we know. What is the lens I've looked at? Have I looked at this problem through a purple lens, through a green lens? You know, it's the way I've seen the problem. I've got here standing on the shoulders of giants. I'm a big one for this because it's that recognition in the social sciences that we actually do have this wealth of people behind us that we rely on as social scientists. We draw on them for our literature review and we draw on them for our credibility. Look, someone did it this way before, that makes me more credible. Okay, that idea of credibility. I like credibility, I use it a bit instead of valid, so just be conscious of that. I do like this quote because it's that idea that all truths exist and the different framework we use will give us a different truth. So when we look at a problem in the social sciences, is if I look at it one way and you look at it another, then we're actually going to have different truths. I did put an example down, this is awesome. So the thing is if Marx was going to be doing, so if Popper was going to be looking at keyboard warriors, and if Popper said, I'm going to have every keyboard warrior in the world is a 40-year-old male living in their parents' basement, right? His research would then be go out there to find that one keyboard warrior who's not male or not 40 or not living in their parents' basement, because then he's falsified his theory. So that's how he would do his research, right? But if Marx was going to be doing it, he'd be searching for the truth about the class and power base of keyboard warriors. And he'd be looking at the hegemony that's at play there. So Marx would be saying, all keyboard warriors are male 40 are living in their parents' basement. And that's because of the class structures of, you know, that men face in society in that way, forces them into the basement of their parents and forces them to be keyboard warriors, because that's the power. Hegemony is a fancy way of saying power. That's the power that's happening onto that person. Okay? So same sort of question, same topic, keyboard warriors, but they look at the problem in a really different way. Okay? Same problem, different way of looking at it. I don't know why I picked keyboard warriors or men 40s, I don't know. Sorry.